All right. Doing it live. So, real quick before we get to today's podcast episode, I wanted to remind everybody and tell everybody that there's another great mud event happening next week, August 26th through the 28th, 2021. Tile Money will be there. I am flying out on Tuesday. The show starts on Wednesday, or excuse me, Thursday, the 26th is the CTI event. Every single day for 3 days, we will be broadcasting live on YouTube as well as Facebook. And I want to thank shagtools.com, the Tile Shop, as well as Rodcat Products for sponsoring those 3 days of live broadcasts. Hello, Tile friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Tile Money Podcast. This is the podcast that is strengthening the tile industry. We're doing this with our business education designed for contractors by contractors. This education is being heard around the world, and it is assisting tile contractors to build sustainable, profitable businesses, the type of business that they can be proud of, the type of business that gives back to the community, the type of business that can pay more and build strong businesses. That is good for the tile industry from the installer up. All right, today we have another great interview lined up for you. I am excited. I have Mark Christensen in the studio with me. Mark is the owner of Tarkus Tile out of Salt Lake, Utah. And Mark is joining me today to discuss his business, the lessons he's learned operating and owning his business since 1999. We will be discussing how he has built his business from doing tract home jobs and anything else that he could, scrape up just to get by in life, how we all start, right? To where his business is today, a premium tile installation business that attracts and delivers high-end award-winning projects. Today, Mark is very choosy about who he is working for. He has won those awards fair and square, putting in the time and the years. He's very skilled, not just with the installation, but also with his old school mud floating preparation work that he takes a lot of pride in. Look forward to learning about how Mark has found inner peace after many struggles. This inner peace, he has told me, has led him to larger profits. Setting boundaries and building over from scratch after nearly losing everything, including his life, will also be part of tonight's interview. Get ready for this in-depth conversation. And I have a feeling that by the time it's over, you're going to want to hear more from Mark. And I always enjoy catching up to him. I'm super excited. If you want to hear more on his story about his struggle with addiction and how he's overcame addiction to drugs, there's 2 links in the show notes wherever you're listening to this. One is for the Global Tile podcast with myself and Jason McDaniel, where we interviewed Mark about his struggle and ultimate getting free from the addiction, as well as the Winning Together podcast on Spotify, where Mark shared more about his journey. But before we bring Mark on to the stage tonight, I want to thank our sponsors. The NTCA is one of our sponsors here. The National Tile Contractors Association can be your very most valuable resource as a tile contractor. They are the oldest and the largest association for tile contractors. They can answer any question you have, whether you're looking for solutions to those complicated problems in the field or an introduction to an expert in a specific field of tile, or whatever the case might be. The NTCA has your back. The members that I'm meeting and talking to are some of the most profitable and professional tile contractors that I know. Join the community and learn from them. You can talk to Jim Olson to learn more about what the NTCA can do for your business. I want to thank Ladecrete International. Ladecrete is one of the leading innovators in the tile installation materials world, literally credited with inventing thinset and winning the World Trade Center contract for providing that lightweight solution to be able to build the world's tallest buildings at the time. Ladecrete is a privately held, family-run company, and you can feel those family values, whether you're talking to your reps in the field, all the way up to the family members who are still working in the business. Ladecrete provides everything you need to install tile, from waterproofing to grout silicone, one-stop shop. GoBoard is another sponsor of ours. GoBoard is an innovative tile backer board from John's Manville. Discover the possibilities with this easy to cut and handle waterproof product. It's a lightweight yet very durable. You can carry a bunch of those boards up the steps with one hand. You can seal those joints and fastener penetrations using GoBoard Pro Sealant to achieve ANSI A118.1 compliant installations. GoBoard Pro Sealant is now available in 20-ounce sausage packs. So get your hands on some of those. Learn more at jm.com/GoBoard. And Happy Tile Guy is our final sponsor. HappyTileGuy.com is where you will get your professional website built, fully SEO optimized for lead generation for your online hub for your business. And I am a co-owner of Happy Tile Guy. All right, let's bring Mark onto the stage. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Luke.
How are you doing?
Great. Good to see you, man. I'm nervous.
Oh, I'm nervous too. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, did I miss anything?
Oh, no, you're good. It's perfect.
Where are you at in the world? In Salt Lake, right?
Salt Lake City. Yeah, I'm like 20 miles south of Salt Lake City, a little town called Lehigh. So
okay,
we work in Salt Lake City and the surrounding areas. So that's
nice.
Where we are every day. So.
Well, I've really been enjoying your Instagram stories and following your projects on Instagram. If you're not following Mark, at Tarkus Tile on Instagram. Mark, go ahead and give us the 30,000-foot overview of your early introduction to tile up until the point where you almost lost it all.
All right. I mean, I could go on forever on this. I'll try to keep it on track. But I grew up, my dad was a teacher and a carpet layer. So I grew up laying carpet with him, learned to work with my hands, and learned kind of how to interact with people in their homes as well, which benefited me later in life. At 21 years old, I was kind of needed a new adventure. So I decided to quit my job and quit college and just go live in my truck and drive around the country. And I was headed to Mexico, and I stopped to see a friend in Phoenix. And he was working for a tile setter who turned out to just kind of be a handyman guy. And I needed some gas money, so I went to work with them for a few days, and I liked it, and they asked me to stay, so I stayed there for quite a few months and started picking up the tile trade. They didn't really teach me much. They showed me how to turn on the saw and mix thin set, and then they kind of left me and my buddy to just lay floors. So we were pretty much self-taught.
That was Phoenix. That was Phoenix, you say?
Yeah, Phoenix, Wickenburg area. So.
Oh, okay. It must be an Arizona tradition because I learned in Tucson, and that's kind of tradition over there, I guess. Leave the apprentice on the job alone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And I had no experience with tile whatsoever, so you can imagine how great our installs were. But I didn't know. It was fun. I liked it. I remember when I flipped on that target saw the first time and heard it hum, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then my buddy showed me that you can touch the blade with your finger, and I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. 21 years old, and I felt like I found kind of my new thing. I instantly really, really liked it. And eventually moved back to Utah after a year or so, and it looked really appealing to me to not have to have a real job again, not have a boss. And so I just decided I was going to do tile, and it was really slow at first. It was, I did my mom's house and my uncle's house and our neighbor's house like you do. And I started just doing little jobs here and there where I could, and started getting more and more work. And I decided that that's what I wanted to do with my life, for that time. And so I pursued getting a contractor's license and a business license, and I set up a legitimate, as legitimate as I could at the time. I probably really had no business being in business at 22 years old, but I was naive. And the best part about being naive is you don't know that you're naive, so you just roll with it. And we made it work, man. It was fun. I got married, and my wife and I just celebrated our 20-year anniversary a couple of months ago, and somehow she stuck around through 22 years of tile and a bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about. I'm not here to blow smoke up anybody's ass about how much money I make and what a great profitable business I've run. It's been a hard run for me. We've had some really good years. We've had some really hard years. we're in a really good groove right now. But it's been a hard uphill battle, as I'm sure it has for most of the people in our situation who are self-employed. It really took me a lot of years to gain some traction. And there's Chase. Yeah, I know Chase very well. He's one of my best friends, and love seeing him on here. It took me, I started meeting more people, getting in with some house flippers, and you know how it works. You meet someone and they refer you, and it just starts to branch out, and you meet more people. So I picked up. I did a lot of, gross bathroom remodels, just subfloor stuff like that, duplexes. But I always kind of had the same mantra to just do my best work, no matter what I was doing. And at the time, I didn't know that wasn't, glamorous work. Really, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and I just always really did my best, despite maybe being on some kind of crappy jobs. Over the years, I just started, picking up more referrals, and I actually took a job at Home Depot for a couple of years, just so my wife and I could get a house. I didn't really have the backing to get approved for a loan at the time, and I worked full time doing tile and full time at Home Depot, and I worked 7 days a week for a lot of years, just doing that and grinding, and really became really obsessed with making a name for myself. And it started to work out. And right before the recession, I got connected with one of my best friends, Don Cash, and we started doing. He had a connection with D.R. Horton, and we made really good money. I learned. He kind of helped me see how much money we could actually make just slamming out tract homes, and it was great. At 28 years old, making a really good living, I felt really good about it.
Did you have some employees at that point, or was
it was just he and I, and we had a helper, and we just
so like three of you were just knocking it out.
We had 1,000-foot floor in 2 days, and then we'd pack our stuff over to the next house in the subdivision and just do that. And even at $3 or $4 a foot, you can do pretty well with that. But it wasn't necessarily the type of work I wanted to do. I always had my sights on, I want to do custom work. I would see pictures in magazines, and once I started getting on the internet, I'd see these guys doing these really custom jobs, and that was what I wanted to be doing, but I didn't have those connections really. But I always kind of kept that in my sights. Like that's the kind of work I want to do. I want to be that kind of a craftsman. And so slowly it just started to build. You get the momentum going, and then the recession hit, and it was, new construction just fizzled out. And luckily I had a lot of contacts and a lot of little remodel work going, but I really had to dig deep and find kind of a new way to get work. And so I joined like Service Magic, which I can't remember what it's called now, Home Advisor. And I did really well with that for a couple of years. Lots of work came from that. We took on some night repair work. We'd go into McDonald's and tear out they were putting in all those McCafe stations at the time. And we'd go in and do those at night and lay new tile. It was disgusting, and I hated it, but it got us through. And then I'd sleep in my truck for a couple hours and go do a bathroom remodel all day. And that's kind of how we lived for a while. Then I feel like I kind of got a really cool break around 2009. I got in with a higher end custom home builder who I met from back working at Home Depot. And he was kind of up and coming, trying to make a name for himself. So was I. And we kind of clicked, and I started doing a lot of work for him and got into that higher end custom marble shower stuff, and really feel like I found my niche and had a lot of cool opportunities to progress there. I think one thing I really wanted to touch on in this is I didn't have a lot of balance in my life. I really went gung-ho with the business, and I enjoyed the tile work, and I enjoyed the excitement of trying to build a brand and build a name for myself. But I gave, that was my life. My wife raised the kids and took care of the house and things, and I ran the business, and that's all I did. We went on vacations and things, and but I really, my main focus was tile and the business. And that's not a bad thing. Our life has benefited from that in a lot of ways. I've got a good, healthy client base today. I've got a good reputation. But what I didn't realize at the time is that my self-care was non-existent. I didn't realize that I was neglecting other needs in my life. And, I think this is pretty relatable for most of us, is it feels like the right thing to do, to grind and put in the work. And you have to do that. You have to do that if you want to make a name for yourself. You just do. There's no shortcut to building a business. There's not. You have to grind. You have to put in the work, and you have to make sacrifices. But I did not have a lot of boundaries with that. I was so hungry to stay busy and make money and make a name for myself that I would take every job I could get. I wanted to have the schedule stacked. I wanted to be booked out for a year, and I wanted to be the guy that did all the jobs. You know what I mean? I didn't understand that I didn't need to do all of that, because it feels like the right thing to do. You get in that phase of people are calling you. You don't want to tell people no, and I didn't really understand that I could kind of filter out certain jobs. Instead, I just tried to take everything. And like I said, it has paid off in the long run, but I think it was really detrimental to my mental health at the time as well. So fast forward a couple years, and my wife had some health problems. I don't want to go too deep into this. If you guys want to listen to our other podcasts, we go way down this. But I ended up having to scale back a little bit and take care of my wife and kids a lot more than I was used to. And then I, a few years later, got testicular cancer myself. And just, it was like the stress of running a business and the stress of these new health issues and money and trying to pay bills and me not really knowing how to cope, with all this. The only thing I knew how to do was go to work, and that was how I coped with life. I did not really know how to keep myself sane any other way than that. And I started to really get in a dark place. And then, as I had to do chemo for my cancer, I got prescribed some pain pills, and I found that those really kind of helped me numb out, from my stressful life. And I really went downhill with those, and eventually got addicted to heroin. And that I could go on for 3 days about this part of the story, but in a nutshell, over the next 4 years, my life spiraled out of control. I got in way deep, and fast forward to 2018, I had lost my house. I had been in and out of jail. I was losing my kids. Truck, tools, all gone. Burned so many bridges, and just I wanted to die. I really did. I don't think I wanted to die. I wanted to not live anymore like that. And July 2018, I kind of reached a crossroads where I was just done. I decided that I can't live like this. I either need to be gone, take my own life, or I need to change. And fortunately and miraculously, I chose to live. And so that's kind of where my story started over. That was a little over 3 years ago. So, sorry.
Thank you again for sharing. And like you said, for anybody listening or watching this, there is 2 links in the show notes that we go deeper into that part of your story. And I was watching it again today from last year around this time when we spoke first about this, and I was moved. I mean, it meant a lot. And yeah, like Jimmy says, you're a warrior. And you made it, and aren't we happy you did? It's an incredible story, and one that helps a lot of people, and no matter where they're at in life. Now, after getting clean and sober, and changing your mindset. I mean, obviously you learned a lot of lessons along the way. We spoke about one of the lessons that you kind of had to recognize was you weren't taking any time for self-care.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us can identify with that. You know, we do have a culture, and we are, most people listening to this are business owners, and oftentimes it's go, go, go. And oftentimes that might work maybe for a decade, maybe 2 decades, maybe 3, but at what point does your body and mind snap? And that's a hard lesson to learn. Um, and it's kind of a wake up call, even myself, just listening to you talk about it this time. It's like, man, I got to check myself, make sure I'm getting that, self-care really,
Yeah.
so that I don't, end up getting burned out. So after getting clean and sober, what was your mindset regarding your work and business? How did you leave those past mistakes behind you and start to rebuild?
So, right off the bat, it took me a few months just to feel like okay again, and I had a really low self-esteem. I had a lot of shame for what I had done. But I knew I needed to get back doing something, and I considered getting a regular job, and I really just, I thought, this is what I'm good at. I've spent my entire adult life, striving to be an expert in this craft. It's what I know. Um, I did this before. I'm gonna try to do it again. I'm gonna try and pick the pieces back up and start over. But I knew I had to do some things differently. I didn't have any boundaries, with work before. It was just going hard all the time. I knew I needed some healthy boundaries, and I noticed you titled our podcast "Setting Boundaries." That's been a huge something that had to happen in my life. And so as I'm trying to get back into business, I'm gonna tell a story real quick. I told this on our other podcast, but so I decided I'm gonna start doing tile again. I don't know where to start. I had I had gotten rid of my old phone that I had, since I started the business in '99, and I was like, I wonder if I could get my old phone number back. That would probably help, because I had just kind of cut off contact with the world at that point.
Yeah.
So I decided to just call it, because I didn't know who had it. Someone else had it. So I called my old number, and this guy answered, and I said, hey, this is kind of weird, but my name's Mark, and I used to have this phone. And he's like, Mark, the tile guy? I'm like, yeah, how did you know? And he's like, dude, I get so many calls and texts for you every freaking day. And I'm like, can I have my number back? He's like, hell yeah, you can have it back. I'm sick of it. It did. So I get my phone back. This guy was super cool about it. And literally, like, within a day or two, I'm getting calls for work. Wow. This is kind of a testament to building a reputation and doing your best work always. So despite me checking out and really being a dipshit for a few years there, I had all these years of my previous hard work and experience to kind of ride the coattails on. And that literally gave me like the boost that I needed to be like, okay, I can start over. I can do this. And I started getting jobs, and it took a while to get some traction, but I decided if I'm going to do this, some things really have to change. I need to set some boundaries with my schedule. So I decided I'm not going to work weekends or evenings anymore. And my biggest concern with that is, like, I'm not going to be able to make enough money unless I'm working those long days and those extra weekends. I'm learning that is completely not true.
Right.
There's been a huge mindset change in once I decided I was going to, be dedicated and not work those long hours and not work weekends. It's like the universe started feeding me ways to be more productive. I find myself being able to get more done in a day, knowing that I'm going to be done at a reasonable hour, like 4 or 5 o'clock. And it took me a couple of years to really latch onto this. I was a workaholic. I was really used to just going all the time. So it wasn't perfect right off the bat.
Sure.
I had to have a lot of reminders from my wife. Like you said, you weren't going to work, Saturdays anymore. Just just need to like, finish this niche so I can take a picture of it.
Yeah.
I had to really learn some self-discipline, and it has paid off tenfold. I mean, my mental health has improved. My physical health has improved. I'm more rested come Monday morning, and it has just really helped me to get a little bit of balance in my life. Come 4 o'clock, I'm usually ready to go home. I'm packing up. It's really rare that you'll find me on a job site on a Saturday. Really rare anymore. Where it used to be every Saturday and Sunday, always.
Yeah.
And every night after work, I'd be doing estimates. And another thing I had to change was that. I was running around so much doing estimates. Everybody that called, I want to go give you a bid and look at your job. And we always hear like, you should be getting 2 to 5 out of every 10 estimates you do. And I decided to challenge that a little bit. I'm like, I don't want to be doing 10 estimates a month or 10 estimates a week for jobs that I'm not going to do. So just because somebody says that's the way it is, that's not how I want it to be. So I decided I'm not going to go out and do estimates anymore unless I'm pretty sure that I'm actually going to get that job.
Yeah.
But how did I achieve that? I don't know. I didn't know how to go about that. So I started just being a lot more careful with screening people. Call, asking questions that kind of get us right down to the nitty gritty. Like, am I actually going to do this job for you?
Are we a right fit?
No. Yeah. If not, then I'm not going to, no disrespect to future potential clients, but I don't want to come to your house to maybe do some work for you. I want to come to your house if I'm going to do some work for you.
Well, it's not disrespectful. It's actually respectful because yes, you're protecting your time, but you're also protecting their time. Like, let's not, everybody's busy. Everybody has work and life balance. So let's not do the dance unless we're going to, go all the way and finish the dance, right? Finish the whole night. But, the other thing I wanted to say before I got lost here, did people, we talked earlier about hustling and working really hard when you're young in the business and you're an entrepreneur. And yes, those are all true. If you were to, like, your son is picking up the trade and following you, or anybody who's listening to this, if you were to tell them, can they start a business and only work, let's call it, 50 hours a week or 40 hours, even let's just say 40, 5/8 traditional. Do you think they have, or do you have to work weekends? And then this follow up, do people respect it that you're not going to work, weekends?
It's so hard to say, man. It's because I can't look back on my life and say, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because that's why I'm where I'm at today. But I look back and say, I wish I would have added some more balance. I think a young person getting into the trade should expect to really have to grind. But I think healthy boundaries are good for anyone, no matter what age you are. I mean, yeah, you gotta earn your way up in this trade, but I think you will get a lot more respect from people if you. This is my son. I'm still the bucket boy. That's right. I'm glad he's watching. Probably the first one of these he's actually watched.
Oh, he also said this.
The mustache is better than his. Yeah, I know. His mustache is better than mine. It's obvious.
Sorry.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I think any person who sets a healthy boundary will benefit from that. And you have to choose, like, what kind of a life you want. Do you want a life with balance, or do you want a life where you're solely focused on your career? And some people can do fine with that. I did fine with it for a while until I didn't, until it was just too much. For my kids, they know that we are done by 4. They know that we don't work weekends, and they're used to that. But I think it's just depends on the person, man. I don't know that there's one answer for that for everybody.
Yeah. Well, how about the part when you decided you're no longer going to work weekends? I don't know about you, but for a lot of us, we're afraid that people are going to be upset that we're not working as much as we used to. Did you find that, or did you find that people were actually respectful of your boundaries once you were set them?
You know what? For the most part, I feel like people respected that. I think the majority of people in the world have healthier boundaries than I did. Maybe not. I don't know. Um, Sometimes we'd be working for some builders who would really expect something to be, finished quicker. But it's just once I decided that, and I don't come out and tell people that. I just, most people don't expect you to work at their house on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
New construction's a little different. Sometimes people work long hours, but I started noticing, like, I remember seeing people packing up and going home every day at 4 or 5, and I was always like, how can you guys be leaving? Like, don't you care? Don't you want to get your job done? And don't you, and people had other things to do, and I always thought that was weird. Turns out it's pretty normal. The job site we're on now, nobody's there at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, we
guy who doesn't have boundaries. So
I was raised, and my boss worked a lot of long hours. He had lights. Lights were just part of his tool package. We did new construction, so oftentimes the lighting wasn't there. So we had lights. We would bring a generator if we needed to. I remember one day, my boss, we were setting up the lights. The sun's going down, and there's these other tile guys doing the same thing, and my boss is just like, tisk tisk. And he's looking at him like, they should be going home. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We work all the time. I didn't care because I only worked 3 or 4 days at that time. I was 17.
Yeah.
And so if we worked 10, 12 hours, it wasn't no big deal, when you're 17. But
yeah,
I was like, what aren't you being hypocritical? And they're like, oh, well, those guys aren't a machine like me.
Right. And I thought that same thing. I had a big ego about it, like, I'm a hard worker. Nobody can work as hard as me. And I took pride in that, but it was misplaced. I didn't realize what I was missing out on. And, I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. Everything that has happened has brought me to this good place that I'm in now. But I do wish that I would have spent more time with my kids when they were little.
Yeah.
And so, but now I do. My kids are older now; they're starting to get big, and I dedicate time to my family every week, and it's good. We're rebuilding a relationship that was missed out on for a lot of years, and it's okay. My boys come to work with me, and I think it's wise to take people's advice when they say family first. I used to see that all the time, and I thought, yeah, obviously I'm putting my family first by working all the time, so they have a nice life, which is partly true. Yeah. But they also need me. They need us. They need our presence, and they need to see that we have balance and boundaries. And so I'm trying really hard to be a better example to my kids of that. Like, yes, we work hard, but also we have fun, and also we relax and we do other things. Working isn't the only thing that we do in life.
Yeah. We've got 2 really nice comments I'd like to read from the audience. This first one says, needing to work weekends comes with improper time management in my personal experience, they say. And I've worked a lot of weekends. I'd say that's a true statement.
Spot on.
Oftentimes we I'm guilty of this. I squander time, and then I have to work later or, longer hours or weekends. And then Chase says, I used to work a lot of 12-hour days, but I found that I get the most done in a 5-hour uninterrupted window. So it's interesting. There's a lot of truth to both these comments, and finding that balance in what works for each individual is different. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. Time management, it's a lot of that. And a lot of it for me was, I think a lot of the reason I was working late is I was kind of avoiding the other things in my life, because working was easier than dealing with the kids sometimes, or going home to the house and the dishes and whatever. And so I feel like I'd fiddle around later hours at work just to kind of not have to deal with the other things in my life.
That's a very honest statement that a lot of us can relate to. And, that's what, I guess that's the term workaholic comes from, right? You get so comfortable at work that life is uncomfortable. I've seen a lot of people like that.
Right. And work, for us as craftspeople, like work is the one place where we can control things. Life can be hectic and out of control and kids and bills and whatever else is going on. But like that work is where I'm in control and I get to create. And so it's kind of like that's the only place we have any semblance of control sometimes when our life gets out of control. And so it kind of became that for me. Um, so it's been really important for me to develop some healthy boundaries and find other reasons in my life. I'm trying really hard to build a life that I don't want to avoid. You know what I mean? A life that I don't feel like I have to run away from, which is where drugs and alcohol came into play for me, is just wanting to not be who I was a lot of the time. I don't feel that anymore. I like my life. I like all different aspects of it. And it's, I'm happy to be at work and I'm happy to be done with work.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good balance.
That's really good. Was it hard to leave those past mistakes behind you mentally and move forward and accept that you were going to be a new person?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it was really hard. It wasn't hard to quit using drugs. Once I decided to quit, like it was easy to be done with that. It was really hard to change my mindset though. I was living in kind of a scarcity mindset. Like I need to gather up everything I can for me, and I need to protect myself. And I'm just now starting to learn about like abundance mindset. It's something I've been. I didn't know that it was called that until recently, but I'm finding that that's what I want. That's the kind of life I want, is to be very open to new things and share. There's plenty of good for everybody, and living in a spirit of gratitude. And so as I've tried to change that mindset, it's getting easier for me to let go of the past. And it's a big part of it was just forgiving myself too. Cutting myself some slack and recognizing that I made some mistakes, and that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means I needed to change some things. So yeah, it's a process, man. It's a process, a daily process.
We've got a question here from the audience I'd like to ask, and it seems like a hard question. They say my nephews who used to work with me are currently addicted to the same things, drug addiction. What would you suggest to someone who's around them to help support their change?
It's different for everybody. Everybody who's in that position needs something different. I think what every one of them does need is love. You need to love them, but you can't enable them. It's really important that you don't enable someone that's using drugs by allowing them to keep repeating their bad behavior around you. I had a lot of people in my life who allowed me to get away with stuff, and that didn't help me. It's when people set boundaries with me that I had to either get out of their life or change. You know what I mean? I think the best thing you can do for someone on drugs is to set healthy boundaries with them, but also let them know that you love them and that you care about them, and that you're there if they need someone to talk to. But I'm not here if you need money or a place to crash when you're high or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not going to borrow my car, and I'm not going to let you sell drugs out of my house. There's you can love someone and also have a boundary with them.
Yeah.
That's the best advice I could give.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So you were able to start finding that balance, and it's a continued pursuit. Anybody will tell you it's something none of us will ever find, but you're working on finding that balance. You're obviously a lot closer than you used to be. And this, you said, is leading you to inner peace. And you said something interesting when we were talking about this. You said the inner peace has led you to larger profits. So can you expand on this and maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, there's so many things intertwined here. So as my emotional and mental health improves, I feel like I feel like I'm vibing on like a higher wavelength than I used to. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like I'm in tune with who I really am. I'm trying my best to be a good person, and in return, I'm kind of in a different, not kind of, I'm in an entirely different headspace than I used to be. And when you live in that good headspace, or I'll speak for myself, being in this positive headspace, I feel like I'm attracting other like-minded people, other people who are in a positive place in their life are being put into my life. And I do believe that. And I used to think that was just dumb, like hippie stuff, but it's not. The law of attraction, if you want to call it, it's totally true. Um, I'm I'm getting I'm meeting people who look at life the same way I do, and those people are running, you know, positive construction businesses or other installers like my friend James, who better be listening right now, who I've been working with quite a bit for the last year, is someone who I met through this higher vibration of being on a positive wavelength. And we have clicked big time, and we're super geeking out on this awesome house right now. And it's a ton of fun. And my buddy Chris and my buddy Don, who we've also been working together with, these are people that have come into my life because he's listening. Good. He's a test.
Hey, James, what's up?
He is working on a super sick shower right now in this house.
Nice.
I can't wait until he shows pictures of it.
Nice.
And general contractors too, man. I've had some really bad experiences with general contractors over the years, and we have met a couple this year, two separate ones, Mike and Zach. If they're listening, I'm giving a shout out to them because they are what all general contractors should strive to be. We've met them and really clicked with them, and that's kind of who most of our work is for right now. We have a similar, business mindset. I feel like the job site vibe is really good and calm. They respect us, we respect them. It's a real symbiotic working relationship. They know and trust that we're going to do a good job, and we do our best to make them look good at their job. And they pay us on time. We're happy. I've worked for some real sleazeball GCs too. I'll share a little story. So, as I'm trying to get in this new mindset, and it's really affecting. It's helping me to discern like who to work for.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your opening that I get to be really choosy about who I work for, and that's true. We have enough leads coming in consistently that that we're in a really fortunate spot. We get to kind of pick and choose the work we do. So I've been a lot more careful with who we decide to work for. A lot of it has to do with just how I feel in interacting with them. Some of it has to do with like how cool is this job going to look in a picture, honestly. But that's not number one. Number one is, even above money, is how do I feel interacting with this person? And then I would say money is, a close second. Like, when are we going to get paid? That's always a big one with GCs. I need to feel sure that we're going to get paid on a certain date. And if they meet those two criteria and we feel good, then it's usually a good mix. Over the winter, I got a call from a new general contractor just this last winter. I had never worked for him before or met him. And I went and looked at his house, and it was a really cool house up in the mountains, this $8 million mountain retreat home. And I really wanted the job. I'm like, this would be a really cool job. But I met this guy, and I had a weird feeling. It was weird. It was a weird vibe. And he kept, I gave him a bid, and he kept saying things like, "Oh, you guys are so expensive, blah, blah, blah." And usually that's a big red flag for me. If somebody says that, he didn't ask me to go down on my price, but he continued to say, "You guys are so expensive. You must make so much money," whatever. It was a normal bid. It wasn't outrageous. And then after a couple of weeks of back and forth, he finally said, "I'll give you the job, but you have to do the kitchen backsplash for me for free." And I should have at that time said, get bent. That's not how we operate. But I really wanted this job. I kind of let my ego take over because this is a really cool job. I want to do it. It's going to be a ton of fun. I ignored my gut feeling about this guy, and I ignored the red flags. and I kind of let my boundaries and my guard down. And the job went okay. You know, we did okay on it. We made okay money, but it turned into so many different little issues of this contractor expecting more of us, feeling like I was getting taken advantage of. Like, oh, the tile was supposed to be delivered. You're gonna have to go get it if you want to finish. Yeah, I'll have a check for you, and then he doesn't. And it made me feel it's not the kind of business relationship I want to have. So it was a good reminder to me to put the ego aside and pause for a minute when dealing with someone like that. Maybe it was a lesson I needed. Fortunately, we finished and got paid, and it's done, and I'm so glad because I just wanted to be done with it. And Jimmy knows exactly what I'm talking about, but we're not going to say his name.
Sure.
So I'm really trying to now, whenever I'm approaching a new job or an estimate or whatever, to just pause. You know what I mean? For so much of my life, I was like, yeah, I'll do that because I just want to have consistent work. You know, I'll do it. Yes, I want to be the guy that makes everybody happy. I'm really trying to take a step back and think, okay, is this experience going to be conducive to the headspace that I want to have in my life? And if I am stressing about when we're going to get paid and feeling like I have to beg someone and having someone treat me like I owe them a favor because they're letting me work on their house, that feels really disrespectful and bad to me, and I don't want to feel that way. And so I really am trying to be a lot more cautious and in tune with like my gut feeling when taking on projects, especially big ones, high dollar projects where we're going to be tied up for a long time. It really sucks to get a few months deep in something like that and start realizing that you're going to be dragged along for a check. You know, that is a horrible feeling, especially when you have other guys that you owe money to. That's not a place I ever want to be. So yeah, that was a good lesson for me. We are on a job right now that is like the complete opposite. This contractor is so on top of things and so respectful, and it's just a really, really different, good, like refreshing vibe, you know. So
yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that story. I think it's incredible and super smart to, you know, look for those jobs, like you said, especially if they're going to be there a while. I mean, it's one thing to pop in and out in a week, you know, but if you're going to be there for months of your life, really protect your mental health by, you know, learning to say no to some of that stuff that you feel off about, right?
Right, totally. And if you've I don't know if there's any business owner alive that hasn't felt that angst of like, oh man, I don't know when I'm going to get paid and I need to get paid. Like if you haven't felt that, good for you, man. But I have spent a lot of my tile career feeling that. And that was a huge contributor to my downward spiral in my mental health.
Yeah.
It's that constant stress, like always worrying about money, wondering when I'm going to get paid. But at the same time, having this like high standard of the work that I do, you know, we do high quality work. That's all we do. We don't, you know.
Well, that's the worst. That's the worst combination, because here you are giving it 110%, doing the best work you can put out there. And you know, you're doing good work.
Right.
You know what other people are putting out. And then you get connected with these jagoffs who don't want to pay you what you're worth, or they string you along for a check, and you come home tired and exhausted, and your wife's sitting there like, where's the check? That's the worst. I mean, that really, I've felt that. You just explained it well. I mean, that's miserable, man. So you've been able to set these boundaries and hold yourself to them, hold your business to them, and start to change your life. Now you're to the point where, I mean, you're winning awards at coverings. You know, I saw you last month, just, you know, 4 or 5 weeks ago. Tell us about, you know, congratulations again, by the way. Tell us about, in retrospect, you know, what advice would you give to someone listening that would like to get to the point where they're winning awards for their craftsmanship?
You know, I appreciate the compliment. The award, it's really cool. It was an honor. Um, I never I never go into a job thinking I'm going to win an award for this. I go into a job thinking, oh shit, I hope I can pull this off. You know what I mean? Like especially that job that won the award. When I saw that, I was like, man, this is like out of my league. I'm going to have to really step it up. And I think the and that's what I love, man. If the more technically challenging, little bit scary the job is, like the more excited I am to get out of bed in the morning. You know, I live for that. I live for the challenges. And thanks, Patrick.
Good to see you, Patrick.
But you know, like the award, it's never something I was like I want to win an award. You know, it was like I really want to like make this job come together because this is like my own personal challenge. I want to see if I can do this. I want to see how nice I can make this. And it's just a cherry on top that we were able to get an award for it. So it was super cool to be recognized for it. But like really, that's never been my intent.
Oh, sure.
My goal. You know what I mean? For people trying to get into it, like I said, I started out in tearing out piss soaked subfloors in duplex bathrooms, man. But I took pride in it and I did my best. And I did my best on, you know, my best. Your best today might not be as good as your best tomorrow. That doesn't matter. Just we all go through phases, you know, the ebb and flow. Just give your true self and your best work to every job. And even when you're stuck on a job that isn't that exciting, you know, we've had thousands of those. Just remember the kind of work that you want to do, you know, and you can do that kind of work on that job and do your best. And I truly believe that you will start to attract the kind of jobs you want. I used to dream about doing these cool custom homes, and I'm like, man, I see these other guys driving up the mountain to these jobs, and I was like, man, I wish I could be doing those jobs, but I don't think I was ready to at that time in my life. You know, if I gotten one, I don't know that I would have come through on it. It's a process. You have to put in the work. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be your own biggest fan. You really do. In this business, you got to pat yourself on the back and work hard and give yourself credit for your hard work. And if you put that vibe out there into the universe that I want to do this kind of custom work, it will start to attract to you. People will remember you for how much you cared about their job. And like I said, man, most people don't care how much you know. I used to like to go in and try to impress prospective clients with my knowledge of the NTCA handbook and perm ratings and all that. And I found that most people, aside from engineers, sometimes don't really care about that. They want to know how much you care about the work you're going to do. You know what I mean? And if I can like accurately convey my excitement about a job to somebody, and which for me isn't hard to do because I get.
How do you do it? Tell us how you do that.
You know what? I'm not fake about it. If it's a job that I'm excited to do, like I wear it on my sleeve. I am super nerdy about geeking out on tile, so it's easy for me to show people. But really, and if it's a job I'm not excited about, it's hard for me to pretend that I am. And usually I'm just like, you know what? I'm probably not interested in this unless I want to really need the money or whatever. I'll do it. But I just try to be genuine with people, and I think people see that I really care. You know, and you have to have a good mix. You have to sell yourself, and you have to be knowledgeable about what you're doing. But for the most part, people just want to know that you care enough to do a good job. And I have worked for like 6 engineers this year, and some of those guys really like to go down the rabbit hole with the tech talk, which I'm totally into. But for the most part, people just want to see that you're like dedicated and that they can trust you in their home, and that you're someone who cares about their work. I would say that's the ticket, man, to really building a client base is just build a relationship of trust by being genuine, you know? And if it's hard for you to connect with people, practice that. That's as important. That's as much a part of our job as laying tile is connecting with people and having etiquette in their homes, you know, and around their kids. And so much of what we do, yeah, Shannon's right. Sincerity has a high value, and people can sense that. People can sense genuineness, and when they do, you have such a better chance of getting that job if you want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my take on it.
I love it, man. So don't be afraid to show your excitement about the work. That's a good way to sell the value. People buy from people at the end of the day. I look at the work you're doing and the work you have done, and I know you float pretty much all your jobs
For the most part,
with
lately, yeah.
with mud work, and I'm going to see you next week in Idaho Springs or Idaho Falls, excuse me. I look at your work, and yes, the mud work is a huge part of the preparation and gets you where you need to be, but there's so much more to it. There's math, the math that goes involved in your jobs. I mean, the pond, the koi pond or you're working on right now, the job that, you won the award for, the CID award. I mean, all that stuff, there's so much time and thought that goes into it before you get, the mud box out and set the tile and research, right? I'm sure you put a lot of research into a lot of your jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
How has, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just wanted you to kind of tell us about your journey with, cause you didn't start out like in Southern California, mixed humping mud like a lot of folks do, but you learned it later in the trade, right?
Yeah, so I had been in tile for almost 11 years full time before I ever floated a wall. I would float my shower pans, and but in so I joined the John Bridge Forum in 2008, and for anyone who doesn't know, it was what was on the internet for tile guys before Tile Geeks came along, and then all the other groups. And I saw people on there floating walls, and I was having all these issues with bad framing, with this builder I was working for at the time. And I would ask, what's the best way to fix this? And everybody's like, float it, and I'm like, okay, I've seen that, but I don't get the concept. And so I started researching it, and I'm like, man, this is the answer. I can float these with concrete and fix it, and that was before foam board and stuff. And once I saw that was an option, I was like, man, I really don't feel like I am going to reach the level that I want to as a craftsman until I know how to do this. And I put that in my sights, and that became my new obsession. I want to step up my craft and learn mud. And so I started reading like crazy on the forum, watching YouTube videos, like Jack Hamilton, who was my buddy, had some videos that he showed me, and went to a mud course like we're doing next week. John Bridge Forum did a mud class in Dallas in 2010, and I went to that and actually got to see it done. And I was like, man, this is exactly what I've been looking for. This will change my approach to everything I do, And so I started trying it. I was working for this builder who had lots of, we were doing 5 or 6 bathrooms per house, and there were lots of them, and I had the place to myself. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna learn.
Training ground, yeah.
Do it. There's nobody here to watch me. Nobody knows that I don't know what I'm doing. They don't know.
Yeah.
The builder didn't know. The other subs didn't know. So I just practiced, and I just decided I'm going to float every shower from now on, and that's what I did. And I did that for a few years. And I've used a lot of foam boards and other things too. And there's a time and a place for everything. I think it's important to be versatile and know all of those products. But it just became a real exciting thing. It kind of reignited the flame in the craft that I needed. And it wasn't making me any money at the time. It was a slow process, and it was probably costing me a lot more money than it was making me for the first 4 or 5 years. I wasn't efficient at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I was excited about it, and I felt like I got a better finished product than I had. It really was a sense of pride for me to be able to handcraft a shower with mud. Now we're at a point where we're actually making good money just doing mud. Like this koi pond, opportunity kind of came up. We were already on this house, and the pool company was going to do some plaster in it, but it obviously needed a ton of work. And the builder's like, "Hey, do you think you can do that, concrete thing you do in there?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I want to do that. That'd be fun." And then it turned into, "Well, can you just float the whole thing and waterproof it and tile it?" So, heck yeah,
they cut the pool guy out.
I mean, I don't know the whole story.
Okay.
But
all right. Why not?
So yeah,
why not?
That's the only way you can do that job is with mud. I mean, there's probably a way to do it with foam, but I'm sure Rod could figure it out. But that's a mud job, and
no. In all reality, it is the only way you should do that job. I mean, you'd be messing around with foam for weeks, and it would never be perfect. It would never be like what you're going to achieve. So my question to you is, and you kind of already answered it, has this allowed you to level up your business and gotten you into, higher end work and earn better money?
Yeah,
you already said it did. So
it has. And this particular job we're on, it's a pretty big house. There's 10 or 11 bathrooms there and 6 steam showers, and most of them are like either small glass mosaic or like pattern wrapped, encaustic tile. And we approached the bid to this job with, to the clients and the builder, like, we want to build you like mud crafted artisan showers for all these glass mosaics. We sent pictures of previous mud jobs we had done, and we said this is like, because these are clients who want the very best that money can buy. They want the best whatever. And we picked up on that. We're like, we can give you like the Cadillac or whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying that it's better than anyone else's, but this is the best thing that we can provide you, is this shower. And they were into it. They're like, yeah. And we got the job at a substantial higher price than the other bid. And we've, it's been really fun. It's been fun to be able to sell that mud work, and have it do exactly what we need. And we've got a lot of big showers to do there that are all prepped now, and it's really nice to install over. But yeah, so it has definitely helped us get into a higher end clientele. And not saying you couldn't get that job without knowing mud. Sure you could, but it was a good selling point for us, and I feel like it helped us get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, me too.
And you're going to be doing some of the demonstrations. I'm looking forward to learning from you, and breaking bread and enjoying each other's company, getting to know you a little better in person. So
yeah, for sure, man. And if I could just say something to you younger people, I see this all the time. Younger people starting their business, like, asking questions. How do I get clients? How do blah, 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 this and this. Man, if I could give you one piece of advice, is learn to have some balance. Learn to take care of your mental health and your emotional health, and grind your ass off and work hard and put yourself out there and take challenges, but like, have some moderation. You know what I mean? It's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And my life is awesome today. I wouldn't go back and do it over, but there are a lot of things that really sucked that would have been nice to know. What I mean? Just have some moderation and some balance, and I think you'll be a lot better off in the future if you can find a way to do that, whatever it is for you.
What is that for you? What is that like? What does your weekend look like? It's Friday night when we're recording this. What are you going to get up to that helps you find that balance?
So after this, I'm going to go and take my wife and kids just to some diner, and we're going to eat, and we'll probably watch a movie. And then every night, since about a month ago, I go on a motorcycle ride, because I finally followed through with my lifelong dream of buying a motorcycle. And it's been like the greatest meditation thing. I mean, it's been awesome for my mental health. So
that's awesome. Good.
last weekend we went to Flaming Gorge with Rod and Jimmy and a bunch of other guys. That was awesome.
Nice.
We try to just be with my kids,
Yeah.
Don't have to be doing anything, but not at work. That's for sure.
Good. All right, Mark. Well, you enjoy your evening. Say hi to your family for me.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks
Take it
everybody
easy.
for listening. So have a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for hanging with us and adding to the discussion with your questions and comments. We appreciate it. It's fun to do these live. I really enjoy it. We've got one last question from the audience. I'm not sure who asked it. What kind of beard balm does Luke use? I like the Honest Amish beard balm. That's been my favorite. I have a few of them, but that's my favorite beard balm there. Jimmy, it was good to see you, brother. Thanks for checking in. New Zealand, is it? Thanks for checking in, Jimmy. All right, tile friends. Well, until next week, we hope you enjoyed this show. If you want to stay in touch with all things tile money, please sign up for our weekly email newsletter. We email that out on Thursdays. The link for that is in the show notes, or you can visit tilemoney.com to sign up. Until next week, tile friends, stay positive out there, and by all means, stay profitable.